Welcome to Get Real with Brian Stuckey, an all-new program to get you real information about how real estate affects you, your family, and your community. Brought to you in part by Bankers Network Corporation. And now, Brian Stuckey.
Good evening. Welcome to Get Real. I'm Brian Stuckey. I have a great program for you tonight. I have Coach Dick Tomey. He's the head football coach at the San Jose State University Spartans. They got their football season be kicking off against USC September 4th. We're going to be talking to Coach about the season this year. And next we have Sandy Wihtol on the property page segment. Silicon Valley's been an interesting place as far as real estate purchases, and we're going to find out what's going on exactly. Sandy's going to give us that expertise. And then finally I have Dan Bozzuto. Healthcare is a hot topic out there. Dan's with Bozzuto Insurance. He's going to talk about healthcare, the pluses and the minuses. But first we got Dick Tomey coming on our Spotlight segment. My guest is Dick Tomey. He's the head football coach entering his 5th season at San Jose State University. So far, Coach, so good. I mean, you've done a great job in developing the programs in Arizona and Hawaii. We thought you'd be at Stanford by now, you know, to tell you the truth. That's been the track history here. So, but every season, every team's full of optimism, whether it be guarded or whether it just be totally exuberant. Where are you at?
I'm very seldom guarded because I'm just the kind of person I refuse to be pessimistic. To me, it's no way to live your life. It's no way I charge into the woods to get my golf ball and think I'm going to make par. And so I just like to try to look on the bright side, but understand what the negatives are. And but we're very excited about our football team.
Okay. You mentioned the golf balls. I stopped from that because there's poison oak out there, and I just finally let it go. So, but this year, I think in particular, is an interesting one because you do have a lot of veterans. You started a lot of freshmen and sophomores, I think, on the offensive line, and so I think they've got some experience under their belt. I think the defensive line, same thing. What would you consider your strengths and weaknesses on the team?
Well, let me start by not answering your question immediately and just saying that in 4 years at San Jose State, we've made what I consider to be unmistakable progress. On the field, we're the 3rd winningest team in our conference the last 3 years. We have a better winning record than Fresno or Nevada. Most people wouldn't guess that, but that's a fact. By small percentage points, our attendance has between tripled and quadrupled over the last 3 years. Our academic performance has been off the chart better, although we were penalized greatly for academic failings years ago and are still being penalized till this day, but this should be our last year. And then we're getting guys drafted. We're on television a lot more. I think the strengths of this year's team, as you mentioned, are our experience. We just have a lot of guys that have spilled a lot of Spartan blood, that have been with us a long time, that have put a lot into the program, and now this is an opportunity for them to see where they are by playing a very ambitious schedule, certainly the most ambitious we've had. But I think they're looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, you mentioned ambitious schedule. We're going to go through that in a second, and people say over the top. Somewhat like the body bag games that we used to have years ago. But I will tell you that I'm a long time, I played baseball at San Jose State in 1979 and have been a season ticket holder, and there is a different culture going on. And like you mentioned, academically, the quality of athlete that we have just seems to be outstanding.
Well, I just really love our guys. I really like our people that we have, both on and off the field. I like them personally. I admire the job they've done academically. I think, and our fans have done a great job, Brian, because I mean the atmosphere in Spartan Stadium has just changed completely from when we started. We didn't have a guy that ever won a road game, a guy that ever won more than 3 games in a season. And these guys, the last 3 years plus 2 games, have a winning record and have been to a bowl game and won a bowl game. And many of the guys that played on that bowl team as freshmen are now seniors. Yeah. And this is their opportunity to show how far they've come.
Yeah, they're a little hungry right now. I do want to tell you, I'm in the stands. I sometimes lead the San Jose thing. And so I literally have your back. I don't want you to ever turn around and acknowledge me because I'd feel like you're not focused on your work down there. But so we're up in the stands, and the crowd there seemed totally exuberant. Differences this year, Coach Terry Malley.
Well, Terry's the only new guy on our staff, and Terry is obviously, as you have alluded to, maybe without even knowing it, is Terry's so well thought of in San Jose. I'm not sure I've ever met anybody in any community I've ever lived in that people think so well of as they do Terry. And I see that because Terry has made a tremendous impact on our program. Just in terms of the fact that the only new guy on a football staff is a hard gig because you've got to be critical of what's happened before. You've got to have new ideas. You've got to get to know all the guys on the staff, and he's done that so well. And still, he's disagreed without being disagreeable. He hasn't been argumentative necessarily, but he's tough. The players love him. He's got the damn loudest voice I have ever heard in my life. Just speaking in normal tones, it hurts your ears.
Yeah.
And so he's just a unique person. Bill McPherson, former San Francisco 49er coach and Santa Clara player that played for Terry's dad, Pat, always told me about the Malley family, and I'm getting a chance to firsthand get to know them, and I can see why everybody's so excited.
Well, it's a perfect fit for a lot of us that grew up around here, seeing what he did at Santa Clara and also with the SaberCats. So that was exciting hearing the news. I want to go through the schedule because I don't want to be remiss. And first of all, if you'd like tickets, I'd suggest going on the internet, sjsuspartans.com, and you can get all the information you need on that, and especially what's going on with the team this year. But let's go through the schedule. Go ahead and put that graphic up. Coach, first of all, September 12th, we got Wihtol, which is my other alma mater. I was there, spent a year, and I'm going to miss that game and be in Scottsdale, Arizona, but I expect a lot of people are going to be in the stands to watch that game.
Now, you're not going to talk about the first game?
Okay, there's a team called USC that you're going to go ahead and play.
Yeah, well, and we know who they are, and we know who Wihtol is. I mean, they were both number 2 in the nation last year. One in one poll, the other in the other poll. They both have great programs. But that's the kind of thing as an athlete, as a competitor, you like to find out how you would fare against the best. And USC, arguably the last 7 years, had the best football program in the country. And our guys understood as of last January that they had to reconstitute themselves, if you will, in order to have a chance to compete. We were going to have to be bigger, stronger, faster. And I think many of our guys have done that. And so we're looking forward to the opportunity. That's what it is. It's an opportunity. And Yang beat Tiger Woods. Yang was 110th in the world. I'm not sure where we rank in the college football world, but sometimes the best team doesn't win. The team that plays the best wins. Happens all the time. And so we're going to go in understanding the enormity of the challenge, but also understanding that if we can do enough things right and create some havoc on their part, that we have a chance to win. And so, as I said, we're very much looking forward to it.
Well, it's a David and Goliath situation, but David prevailed in that situation as well. So we go back to the board, we see these are the home games, and we don't have time to go through, Coach, the other games that you have away, but Utah, September 12th.
Well, we're hoping that this has a chance to be the biggest home draw we've ever had at San Jose State, certainly in recent memory, because there's a lot of interest. Utah has a tremendous fan following in California. This game's on national television. It's a 7:30 game. Utah is coming off just pounding Alabama in the bowl game last year, the BCS bowl game, and they've got a terrific football program, a program that's mature. They've won 7 straight bowl games. So they have an outstanding program in their own right, but I think being at home, this is a chance for the fans in this area to see an outstanding football game and an outstanding football program.
Okay, and can we see that graphic one last time? Then we're going to have to end things, but you got Stanford away. We went ahead and put that up. Cal Poly, Idaho, Nevada, who's going to be really tough this year, Hawaii, and New Mexico State. And the homecoming game will be October 10th, and that's against Idaho. But, Coach, I know the WAC, I just got to close this up, but the WAC's tough. A lot of it had to do with Boise State's national recognition and the fact that Ian Johnson proposed to the gal in the stands. I mean,
Not
just great athletes, but very romantic athletes as well. So.
Well, the WAC's a great conference, I think. It's very well respected nationally, and as you say, Boise's dominated our conference. It's not close who's the best, but it's getting better, and I think San Jose State has competed better and better all the time.
Great. Coach, we're looking forward to seeing the games out there. I promise you, for a great time, you want to go out to San Jose State Spartan Stadium this year. We're going to have a great program, and if you want to get tickets, go to sjsuspartans.com and you get ticket information. One last thing I want to promote, Coach Nancy Kincaid's Coach Tomey's wife. Great book, Eat, Drink, and Be From Mississippi. But we'll see you at Spartan Stadium. Right back in the property page segment, Sandy Wihtol. My next guest is Sandy Wihtol on the property page segment. A lot of people out there are wondering, even at this point, if it's a good time to sell or buy a property, real estate in Santa Clara Valley. And Sandy, it's actually been, it hasn't been so bad. Is that correct?
It's been quite a ride. I mean, there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last few years, but there's definitely some optimism amongst the buyers and, of course, the economy. And you read the media drives a lot of what people think about the housing market in our area. You go back here in the last couple of years, we had inventory approaching 6,000 single-family homes on the market. At this point, we're down to 3,000. And in the first time, I think it was since November 2005, we actually have more pending sales, new pending sales coming to the market than new listings coming to the market. So, and that's a combination of what everybody reads in the paper in terms of the foreclosures that are going on and also the short sales. Which in itself is another topic that a lot of people aren't really clear on how that works. But the REO or bank-owned properties where the bank actually owns it has a go-to person that could say yay or nay to a contract offer. It's just like buying it from an owner. And that marketplace, in terms of pricing, is different than what, say, a homeowner would put their house on the market for.
Sure.
It can be priced accordingly. Then you go into the short sales, and I've have one offer on a short sale now for 5 months, and another one going on 6 weeks, and those buyers have to wear a different cap.
You opened up a can of worms. We weren't going to go into this, but there's two things from what you're saying. One is that the media will spur a lot of activity in the real estate market, which I haven't heard an agent talk about that before. Mm-hmm. But it's what you're saying is that somebody reads an article, this is a great time to buy, and this is what you can do, and everything else, the phone will start ringing.
Well, yeah, and I think what happens, you'll see it at open houses, and on the flip side, when the papers were coming out and saying, the recession's coming, or maybe the next Great Depression, you'd hear people,
maybe we should hold on to our money.
Yeah, no, now it's not the right time to buy. But there's, on the flip side now, where we're seeing generally more positive reports from the media, it has an impact. And I hear the comments at open houses or in conversations with my clients.
Okay, the other part of the can of worms I was mentioning was that you mentioned REOs, you mentioned short sales. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't understand what those are, and the other one is sale by the owner.
Correct.
So why don't you explain that real quick? What do you mean by REO?
Well, REO is a bank-owned, real estate-owned property, where the bank has put it up through auction. It wasn't taken. Okay.
It means that the payments are behind.
And it's been foreclosed upon, and the bank has taken it back.
Okay.
And at that point, then the bank's going to go ahead, and there's a number of agents that are specializing working with those types of properties, and they'll put them up for sale. And so, from a buyer's perspective, when your agent goes to present an offer, he presents the offer to the agent, and then the listing agent then presents it to the go-to person at the bank, mm-hmm. and it can be, it is a much easier process for a buyer to get. Whereas the short sales are basically the owner is upside down and owes far more than what he can pay on it and mm-hmm. what it's worth, and he's negotiated a sales price with the bank if he can get a number. But the banks are just dragging their feet, and quite honestly, it seems as if the banks could get their act together and expedite this process, and we could get through this a lot quicker. But it's new territory for everybody.
Well, it makes you wonder where the stimulus money, that was supposed to free up money to where, banks wouldn't feel so bad that they had to cut their losses so deeply. And because they're trying to hold on to everything they can, so therefore they're reluctant to go ahead and make this deal with the people living in there. So it is kind of a mess.
Yeah.
But you're finding that the REOs, probably between the two of them, are the better route to go as far as simplicity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that happens, and I've worked with a number of first-time buyers lately, where they'll go to the internet and they'll see this, and they'll see these absolutely teaser pricing on these homes, and he'll go, I found this 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in Sunnyvale for $360,000, and you go through and you look at the neighborhood, or even he just mentions a street, and you go, well, I haven't seen anything in there for under 500 in years. Now, can he maybe get it at 400 or something, 450? Sure, but the problem is there's many offers on those properties, and a lot of cash buyers coming along. There's a lot of money floating around in the valley of investors looking to buy these properties.
Yeah, and lenders make it a little tougher on those investors to buy those properties. They expect a little bit more down than if it was owner occupied. Last thing, would you look at the resales by the owners versus the REOs and the short sales? How do you think the pricing is on those?
There's a distressed property versus not a distressed property, and you'll see some of these REOs and some of these short sales where the properties they've been trashed, where things have been actually taken out of the property, and so I think in the industry we look at what the situation is, because there's a lot of pitfalls going after the short sales or the REOs. Versus the homeowner occupied property, and there's actually it's a little bit of a different valuation too, So it's been interesting how, even though there's been so many foreclosures and bidding on a lot of these properties, in most of the peninsula, you go along from Cambrian, Almond Valley on up along the peninsula, we haven't seen nearly as much as, say, on the east side, or of course for those agents out and those buyers out in the valley.
Okay. Final question is that what would you recommend to buyers in this market and sellers?
In terms of opportunity, I mean,
yeah, is it still a great time to get out there?
Well, the problem that some people, I mean, naturally you've got to feel comfortable with what your decision is going to be, but you've got two factors that are going to go on here. If you have rising interest rates and then you have rising price values, well, your payments go up, plus the fact of what you're going to have to pay to get a property, that delta grows dramatically. And so I think, would I say that there could be some rough times along the way? Sure, who says we're completely out of it? But I'd say we're down along the bottom.
Okay. So it's still a great time to buy. Sandy Wihtol has been my guest in the Property Page segment. If you have any questions for Sandy or myself or any of my guests, please get a hold of me at brian@forbestloan.com or 408-269-8366. We'll be coming right back in the Lifestyle segment, and Dan Bozzuto. My guest here on in Lifestyle segment is Dan Bozzuto. He's a first-time guest, and Dan, I actually, be quite frank with you, we go to the same gym, and I overheard him talk about healthcare. He's the owner, he's a CEO of Bozzuto and Associates Insurance Company, and Dan, I was impressed by your conversation there. I've been wanting to get somebody, for healthcare conversation, and you're the man.
Great.
So,
thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now. I just read in the Almaden Times, a local newspaper, they were supposed to have just a typical council meeting,
Right.
and it turned into a town hall meeting where people were voicing their opinion, as we've heard throughout the country, about their displeasure. Seems like most of them, because they're the most vocal, apparently,
right.
Or their approval of the healthcare system, the overhaul of it. So, and one of the big things that's been coming up is the single pay. Single pay system.
Right.
Why don't you explain that? Because I got to be honest with you, I'm a novice.
Right. Well, currently we have a private system that is pretty much based on the employer typically paying for insurance for people. There's multiple choices, different insurance companies that are available for the employer to choose in the state. And then beyond that, there's other programs which we can talk about later. But the single payer system is typically a government system where all bills are approved and paid by the government in whatever form that takes.
And what criteria is within that? So it's like...
Well, that is where we have a lot of ambiguity and just a lot of people that really don't understand what is really in the program. The program currently, as proposed, is about 1,200 pages. We understand that most people in the government have not read
Of course they didn't read it,
have not read it. So private citizens like ourselves have read this, and we come up with things, and that's where we find out about the so-called death panels and all these clauses that cause us a lot of concern in there.
Okay, so you build on the single pay system, as you mentioned.
right.
So you got a single payer. Now, is that inclusive of everybody? Because they're talking about universal health care, and isn't it important that, well, not important, it's imperative that everybody be involved?
Well,
as far as paying.
that would be different than the system that we have right now.
Okay.
Right now, we have a system that covers approximately 85% of people. The 15%, which is considered the uninsured, there's some controversy as to how that number works, but what we believe is about 5 million of those people are actually having a difficult time getting insurance because of a pre-existing condition, or they simply just can't afford it. The other percentage would be the people that choose not to buy insurance, which are typically the younger people, and then the people that are here illegally, and that seems to be very controversial with the bill as well.
That's the hot topic right there, the hot potato. But
Right.
Now, myself, I'm self-employed.
Right.
This isn't what I do for a living. Is interview people. I'm in the mortgage business. I'm an independent contractor. I can hang my license anywhere. Now the problem is that because I was temperamental one time, I had Blue Shield, then I went to Kaiser. And then Kaiser raised my rate up when I turned 50, and then so with a bad attitude, I stopped that, thinking which is one of the stupidest things I've ever done, because I broke my arm coaching baseball, and they want me a year removed after rehabilitation and everything else, and I can't get insurance. When all I want to do is go get a physical.
Right.
And so that's very frustrating. So. I don't know what a remedy, like you said, pre-existing.
Can you not get insurance, or is it specifically that they're going to exclude the pre-existing condition?
Well, that was the thing.
Right.
They wouldn't do that.
Right.
It's like I would say, well, take the arm. Don't worry, I just want a physical.
Right. Well, there's certainly in the system. There's certainly shortcomings. Obviously, I have more of a conservative approach to this. I don't really believe that I want the government involved in my healthcare choices, and that's one of the things that concerns me. Now, there are ways to, we believe, fix the system. One of those would be they could simply say that you cannot deny somebody health insurance because of a pre-existing condition. So we have to remember that we're working with 15% of the people that we're trying to get coverage for.
Okay.
And so many of those 15% choose not to have insurance. So again, remember, and we do know people that we provide money to pay for benefits, but they just don't buy it. They'd rather do something else with the money, of course.
Okay.
So rather than try to, my belief is rather than try to change the whole system, especially in the midst of huge deficits and economic turmoil, maybe we need to try to fix some of the things that are broken on a smaller level.
Which would be nice. And again, do you see any problem? See, with me, I think there's a problem.
Right.
For me.
Okay.
Because, if I'm denied medical care for something totally unrelated to my arm, I'm not going to all of a sudden have a blood clot, I don't think. Maybe I can as a result of this injury. I don't know why it needs to be associated. But do you think it's possible to have a government plan to coexist with a private plan?
Some countries do have them. The problem with that kind of plan is what ends up happening is the elite end up with the insurance, because the insurance, what will happen is certain physicians and caregivers will only deal with private enterprise because they don't want to deal with the government. And you'll end up, the care will change between the two. Now, the other thing is private enterprise, like your business and my business, we have to run at a profit. Well, the government necessarily does not have to run at a profit, and we know that from the post office and the DMV, and Cash for Clunkers is a great one. We're having a difficult time administering that program, but somehow we think we can handle healthcare. So
yeah, well, what are some remedies? What would you say the highlights of your healthcare, and what are some of the downfalls?
I think that some of the things that it's interesting why they're not answered is In California, we do have a tort reform where you can only sue your physician for up to $250,000. And anybody that's been involved in healthcare knows that it's really, they always say practicing healthcare. Well, it is. You're practicing because you just don't know what is wrong all the time. Well, when there's no limit to how much a physician can be sued, they're going to do every test in the world that they can do to try to find out what's wrong with you, which drives up the cost of health care. Mm-hmm. So one thing is doing, managing tort in lawsuits. The other one that we find really interesting is why can't insurance companies sell across state lines? They can in other lines. We sell for liability or workers' comp or whatever. We can sell from we can sell from other countries. But when it comes to health insurance, it's limited to the states. So we think that if you opened up the state lines, you'd have much more competition, which will drive prices down. And proof there is that insurance rates in general are down across the board. Mm-hmm. So there are things that we can do without trying to kind of just take over the whole system. Mm-hmm. And that's our concern.
Well, it's going to be interesting, the debate. I know that I don't see anything productive when you have a lot of these town hall meetings and people are shouting down each other. I mean, I'm the type of guy, I voted for Ralph Nader, so it's because I'm frustrated with both parties about the mudslinging and all that. And I hope in this situation, it's vital, it's that important, that we either fix our existing system, right, because as you mentioned, it's just 15%, that we're talking about here, but it has to be through a healthy way to go ahead and debate.
I agree.
So, Dan, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Dan Bozzuto for coming on the program. I want to thank all my guests. Dick Tomey, I want to encourage you to go out to watch the San Jose State Spartans this year. Once again, you go to their website, sjsuspartans.com, and get all the ticket information. You can see the schedule, the rosters, and everything else you need to know. I want to thank Sandy Wihtol for coming on the property page segment. If you have any questions for Sandy, get a hold of me at brian@forbestloan.com or 408-269-8366. And finally, Dan Bozzuto from Bozzuto & Associates Insurance. If you have any questions for Dan, 408-269-8366 or brian@forbestloan, and I'll make sure I have you get a hold of Dan. So I do want to ask you a question. Where do you think we're going from here? What do you think ultimately is going to happen?
I don't think the health care is going to pass. I don't think the country is ready for that much change, with the change we have now. Mm-hmm. If it was a better economy, I think we would maybe look at it a little bit differently.
Okay.
That's my gut.
It may be a little bit too much too soon.
Right.
So,
right.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week here on Get Real.